She signed the divorce papers 6 months pregnant. He married an Instagram model 8 weeks later. Then he sued her for stealing the company she built with her own hands. This is the story of Harper Westfield, a woman who lost everything in a divorce, gave birth to triplets alone, and watched her ex-husband take credit for her life's work. But here's what he didn't count on. She kept receipts, every email, every timestamp, every piece of evidence that proved he was the thief, not her. What happens next will make you believe in justice again. Stay until the end to see how she didn't just get revenge. She got everything. Hit that like button if you love a good comeback story. And subscribe because women winning never gets old. The conference lights at TechCrunch Disrupt were blinding. Harper Westfield stood at the podium, 32 years old, wearing a tailored navy suit that cost more than her rent used to. The award in her hands read Comeback Founder of the Year. Behind her, the screen displayed her company logo, Prism Analytics. $15 million valuation, 30 employees, 200 clients. 3 years ago, Harper said into the microphone, her voice steady, I signed away my rights to a company I built because I was tired, pregnant, and told I was being unreasonable. The audience went quiet. 2 years ago, I was sued for stealing my own work. Last year, I proved that the only thing I stole was my life back. Applause erupted, but Harper's mind wasn't in that ballroom. It was 3 years earlier, in a lawyer's office that smelled like leather and betrayal. She was 6 months pregnant then, signing divorce papers with trembling hands. Her husband, no, her soon-to-be ex-husband, Dominic Westfield, sat across the mahogany table adjusting his Rolex. He didn't look at her, not once. Let's keep this clean, Harper, Dominic had said, his voice smooth as glass. I have a flight to San Francisco this afternoon. He didn't mention why. Everyone already knew. The tech blogs had been whispering about the Instagram model, Sienna Vale, for months. 26 years old, 1.2 million followers, and apparently everything Harper wasn't anymore. Harper pressed the Mont Blanc pen to the paper. Her signature looked like a wound bleeding into white space. A tear dropped onto the ink, spreading the word divorced into a gray stain. Take care of yourself, Dominic said casually, sliding his iPhone into his pocket, like she was a colleague, a stranger at a coffee shop, not the woman who'd spent 7 years building his dream with him. The door shut behind him with a soft click. Final, absolute. Harper's lawyer, Beth Kowalski, a woman with steel gray hair and harder eyes, gathered papers into her briefcase. The prenup is tight, Beth said, not unkindly. $50,000 plus health insurance for 1 year. Given his company's valuation, you could fight it, but what? Harper asked. But litigation costs money you don't have, and he'll drag it out until the baby comes. Maybe longer. Beth's expression softened slightly. Sometimes the cleanest cut heals fastest. Harper looked out the window at Manhattan. Fifth Avenue bustled below, indifferent to her pain. Taxis honked. People rushed past luxury storefronts. Cartier, Tiffany, Dior. Each window reflected a life that used to be hers. Her hand moved to her belly. A small kick answered. We'll be okay, she whispered to the baby. I promise I will. She didn't know she was lying. Harper had met Dominic Westfield 9 years earlier at NYU. He was a computer science major with big ideas and bigger confidence. She was getting her MBA, working 2 jobs to pay tuition. He talked about disrupting industries. She knew how to actually build things. They fell in love over late-night pizza and coding sessions. Got married at 25 in a small ceremony in Central Park. Started Pulse Analytics in their tiny apartment, working 80-hour weeks, surviving on ramen and ambition. Harper handled everything Dominic found boring: client relationships, operations, the pitch deck that eventually secured their Series A funding. She left her marketing director job at a Fortune 500 company to work full-time on Pulse. No salary, just sweat, equity, and promises. We're building this together, Dominic used to say. 50-50, always. Then came the Series B funding, $15 million. Suddenly, Pulse Analytics had a real office, real employees, real investors. Dominic started wearing expensive suits and flying first class to conferences. Harper got pregnant. Finally, after 2 miscarriages that had nearly destroyed her, At 5 months, she found the hotel receipt in his blazer pocket while doing laundry. The Peninsula, $800 a night. She'd been at home that weekend, working on Q3 projections. The confrontation was ugly. It's been 6 months, Dominic admitted, not quite meeting her eyes. I didn't plan it. Sienna just... She makes me feel alive again. Harper, you're always tired now. Always worried about the baby. We don't connect anymore. I'm building your company and growing your child, Harper had said, voice shaking. What exactly am I supposed to be connecting about? See this anger. This is why we're not working. He filed for divorce 3 days later. Fast, efficient, like closing a bad business deal. Now, standing in that lawyer's office with signed papers and $50,000 she hadn't earned, Harper realized the truth she'd been erased from her own story. Dominic would tell people Pulse Analytics was his vision, his creation, his success. The IPO would come eventually. He'd be worth millions. The business press would call him a genius. And Harper, she'd be the ex-wife who couldn't keep up. The woman who got left behind. Outside, rain started falling. Harper tucked the divorce decree into her worn leather bag and stepped into the storm. 6 weeks after signing the papers, Harper sat in Rachel Torres' spare bedroom in Queens, her best friend since college. Rachel worked as a paralegal and lived in a rent-controlled apartment with barely enough room for herself, let alone a pregnant woman spiraling into despair. But Rachel had opened her door anyway. You're not alone, she'd said. Not ever. Now Harper stared at her phone, wishing she'd thrown it in the river. Instagram glowed with Sienna Vale's engagement announcement. The ring was massive, easily 4 carats, catching light like a small sun. The caption read, when you know, you know. Sometimes the universe sends you exactly who you need, exactly when you need them. I said yes to forever. The photo had 60,000 likes in 2 hours. Harper was 7.5 months pregnant, wearing sweatpants that barely fit in one of Rachel's oversized NYU shirts. She worked contract marketing gigs from the tiny bedroom, trying to save money for the baby. Singular. The baby. She didn't know yet. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother, saw the Instagram post. Are you okay? No, she wasn't okay, but what could she say? That she wanted to scream, that some nights she couldn't breathe, that she'd built Dominic's pitch deck, cultivated his first 10 clients, designed the entire user interface for him, only to watch him copyright it all under his name. I'm fine. Harper texted back. The lie tasted familiar. The wedding happened exactly 8 weeks after the divorce was finalized. Dominic married Sienna at the Plaza Hotel, the venue Harper had pinned to her secret Pinterest board years ago. She knew because Sienna posted 47 times. The ceremony photos showed crystal chandeliers and white roses. Sienna's dress was Vera Wang, form-fitting and stunning. Dominic wore Tom Ford, looking like a tech prince marrying his fairy tale ending. The caption on their official wedding photo read, 2 souls, 1 journey, grateful for second chances and new beginnings. The Westfields. Harper read it from a plastic chair at the Medicaid office, waiting to apply for pregnancy coverage. Her private insurance, part of the divorce settlement, had mysteriously denied coverage for high-risk pregnancy due to what they called a paperwork error. The appeals process would take months. The baby was due in 6 weeks. Number 42, the clerk called. Harper approached the window, documents in hand, tax returns, divorce decree, medical bills already totaling $30,000. The clerk, a tired woman with kind eyes, reviewed her application. You made $85,000 last year. Yes, but that was before. The cutoff is $72,000 for a single person. I'm sorry, you don't qualify. Harper felt the room tilt. I have $3,000 in savings. I'm about to have a baby. How am I supposed to? You can reapply after filing this year's taxes. If your income drops significantly, you might qualify then. The baby will be here in 6 weeks. The clerk's expression softened with genuine sympathy. There are payment plans. Most hospitals work with you. I'm sorry I can't do more. Harper walked out into September sunshine that felt cruel. Rachel met her at a coffee shop nearby, took one look at her face and pulled out her checkbook. No, Harper said immediately. Yes, Rachel said firmly. I've got 10,000 in savings. You'll pay me back when you're on your feet. This isn't charity. It's a loan between friends. Now take the damn check before I make it 15. Harper cried into her iced coffee. A middle-aged couple at the next table glanced over with concern. She turned away, embarrassed. That night, she couldn't sleep. Rain tapped against the window of Rachel's spare room. Harper scrolled through her phone again, torturing herself. More wedding photos, Dominic and Sienna dancing, cutting cake, kissing under sparklers. The Plaza Ballroom where Harper had once imagined her own anniversary party. The comments were brutal in their casual cruelty. Upgrade achieved. That poor ex-wife must be fuming. Sometimes you have to let go of the past to find your future. He looks so happy now. Good for him. Harper locked her phone and stared at the ceiling. Her hand moved to her belly, feeling movement inside. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing her mother's pain. I'm sorry, Harper whispered into the darkness. I'm sorry you're going to have a mother who's broke and scared and has no idea what she's doing. But I promise you something. I promise I won't give up. Whatever it takes, I'll figure this out. The baby kicked again. Harper closed her eyes and tried to believe her own words. She didn't know that in 2 days, she'd find out she wasn't having one baby. She was having 3. And everything she thought was rock bottom was about to open up into a deeper hole. The prenatal appointment started routine. Harper lay on the exam table while the ultrasound technician, a cheerful woman named Sandra, squeezed cold gel across her belly. Let's see how baby's doing, Sandra said, moving the wand across Harper's skin. Then she paused, frowned slightly, moved the wand again. Is everything okay? Harper asked, that familiar spike of fear shooting through her. Let me get the doctor, Sandra said, too brightly. Just a second. Dr. Ellen Morrison came in 3 minutes later, took the wand herself, and studied the screen in silence. Harper watched her face, trying to read the expression. Harper, Dr. Morrison finally said, I'm seeing something that was missed on your earlier ultrasounds. You're not having one baby. Harper's heart stopped. What do you mean, you're having triplets? 2 girls and a boy? The room spun. Harper heard the words but couldn't process them. Triplets. 3 babies, 3 of everything she couldn't afford. How is that possible? The first ultrasound. It happens, Dr. Morrison said gently. Especially in early pregnancy, babies can hide behind each other. You're at 34 weeks now. They're measuring small, which is normal for multiples. But we need to monitor you very closely. Triplet pregnancies are automatically high risk. Harper's mind raced through impossible math. 3 cribs, 3 car seats, 3 of everything, times 3 the diapers, the formula, the clothes. Her $3,000 in savings suddenly looked like Monopoly money. What does high risk mean? She managed to ask. It means you need weekly monitoring, possible bed rest, high probability of early delivery, and NICU time. The average triplet pregnancy delivers at 32 weeks. You're already at 34, which is excellent, but we need to be prepared. Dr. Morrison pulled up a chair, her expression kind but serious. Do you have support at home? Someone to help with appointments and preparation? Harper thought of Rachel's tiny apartment. The spare bedroom barely fit a twin bed. Where would 3 babies even sleep? I'll figure it out, Harper said. What else could she say? The doctor handed her a packet of information and a list of specialists. I'm referring you to Dr. Patricia Holland. She specializes in multiple births. You'll need to see her twice a week minimum. And Harper, she paused. I need you to take this seriously. Stress is dangerous in multiple pregnancy. Whatever's going on in your life, you need help. Harper nodded, took the papers, and somehow made it to the subway. She sat on the Q train back to Queens, people pressing around her, and stared at the information packet. The first page showed 3 smiling babies. The second page listed complications: preterm labor, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, placental issues. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You should stop embarrassing yourself. He's moved on. You should too. Harper stared at it. She knew that tone. Sienna. She deleted the message and put her phone away. At the pharmacy, she picked up the prenatal vitamins Dr. Morrison prescribed. 3 bottles. The total came to $78. Harper's credit card had $83 available credit. She bought them, plus one protein bar for dinner, and walked back to Rachel's apartment. Rachel took one look at her face when she walked in. What happened? I'm having triplets. Rachel sat down hard on the couch. Holy shit. Yeah. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Rachel got up, opened her laptop, and started making lists. Okay, cribs. We can get 3-pack and plays used. Formula. There are programs. Diapers. We'll need to budget, but... Rachel, I can't afford 3 babies. Harper's voice cracked. I can barely afford 1. Then we figure it out together. Rachel's voice was firm. You're not doing this alone, and my sister had twins. I know people. We'll make it work. That night, Harper lay in the tiny bedroom and tried to imagine 3 babies, 3 personalities, 3 futures depending entirely on her. A woman with $3,000, no jaw, and an ex-husband who'd stolen her company. She pulled out her laptop and opened her budget spreadsheet. No matter how she calculated it, the numbers didn't work. Medical bills would be at least $150,000 without insurance. NICU costs averaged $15,000 per week per baby. Even if the babies came home quickly, the ongoing expenses were impossible. Harper closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. You know that moment when you've lost everything, she thought. That moment when rock bottom opens up and there's another bottom underneath. I just found it. But in the morning, she'd received the call that would make everything infinitely worse. Harper's water broke at 2:47 in the morning. She woke to warm liquids soaking through the sheets in immediate, crushing pain. Rachel, she gasped. Rachel appeared in the doorway in seconds, took one look, and grabbed her phone. I'm calling 911. Oh, it's too early, Harper said through gritted teeth. I'm only 34 weeks. They need more time. They need to survive. Come on. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and fear. A contraction hit every 3 minutes, each one feeling like her body was tearing apart. The EMT kept checking her vitals, speaking calmly. But Harper saw the concern in his eyes. First pregnancy, he asked. Triplets, Harper managed. His eyebrows shot up. You're going to do great, he said, with the kind of confidence that only comes from lying to patients. At the hospital, everything happened fast. Nurses wheeled her into a delivery room. Dr. Morrison appeared, already in scrubs. We're doing a C-section, she said. The babies are in distress. Harper, I need you to stay calm. Are they going to be okay? Harper asked, tears streaming down her face. We're going to do everything we can. The anesthesiologist administered the epidural. The room filled with people, nurses and specialists Harper didn't recognize. Someone held her hand. She realized it was Rachel, who'd somehow made it past the doors. You've got this, Rachel whispered. You're the strongest person I know. Then Dr. Morrison began the procedure. Harper couldn't feel the incision, but she felt the pressure, the pulling, the strange sensation of something being removed from inside her body. First baby, someone called. A tiny, weak cry followed. Second baby, another cry, even quieter. Third baby. This one didn't cry immediately. Harper's heart stopped. Then a small, indignant wail filled the room. 2 girls and a boy, Dr. Morrison announced. They're breathing, but they're going straight to NICU. Harper, you did beautifully. They held the babies up for her to see for maybe 3 seconds each. Tiny red faces, barely bigger than her palm, covered in white coating and impossibly fragile. Then they were whisked away to waiting incubators. In the recovery room, a nurse brought Harper photos on a tablet. 3 impossibly small babies, each one in their own plastic incubator, covered in wires and tubes. Girl 1 is 4 pounds, 2 ounces, the nurse explained. Girl 2 is 3 pounds, 15 ounces. Boy is 4 pounds even. They're small but strong. You should be very proud. Harper stared at the photos. Her daughters, her son, 3 lives she'd created, now fighting to survive in plastic boxes. When can I see them? In a few hours. Once you're stable, the NICU team will come talk to you about their care plan. When the NICU doctor came, his news was both good and terrifying. The babies were breathing on their own, which was excellent, but they'd need to stay in the NICU for at least 3 weeks, possibly 6. They needed to learn to regulate their temperature, feed properly, and gain weight. The cost would be approximately $15,000 per week, times 3 babies, times minimum 3 weeks. Harper did the math. $135,000 minimum. We have payment plans, the doctor said kindly, and there are programs that might help. The hospital social worker will meet with you tomorrow. That social worker, a well-meaning woman named Patricia, came the next afternoon with a clipboard full of applications, government assistance, charity care, sliding scale programs. Have you considered, Patricia said carefully, all your options? Raising triplets alone is extremely difficult. There are families who— No, Harper said immediately. These are my children. Patricia nodded. Of course, and I had to ask. Let's talk about resources then. 3 days into the NICU stay, Harper sat beside the incubators, her body still aching from surgery, and tried to process the impossible situation. The babies were stable but fragile, each one covered in wires, feeding tubes, monitors. The machines beeped constantly, tracking every breath, every heartbeat. She named them that day. Sloane Marie for the older girl, fierce and fighting. Piper Grace for the younger, gentle and steady. Brooks Alexander for the boy, small but stubborn. Hi, my loves, Harper whispered, placing her hand against the warm plastic of each incubator. Mommy's here, and I promise you, I'm going to figure this out. She had no idea how, but watching them breathe, seeing their tiny chests rise and fall, something hardened inside her. Not just determination, rage, at Dominic for abandoning them, at herself for signing those papers, at a system that made medical care cost more than most people earned in years. On day 5, a man in an expensive suit appeared in the NICU waiting room, Garrett Sullivan, founder of Sullivan Ventures, the firm that had led Pulse Analytics Series B funding. Harper Westfield, he said, extending his hand. I've been looking for you. Harper shook his hand, confused. Do we know each other? We've met once at Pulse's funding announcement, but I remember you because you built the pitch deck that convinced me to invest. He sat down beside her. I've been following the situation, divorce, triplets. I'm guessing Dominic hasn't been helpful. Harper laughed bitterly. That would require him acknowledging these babies exist. Garrett nodded slowly. I suspected. Look, I'll be direct. My company has a family foundation. We help parents in crisis situations, medical bills, that kind of thing. I'd like to cover your NICU costs. Harper stared at him. Why? Because Dominic took credit for your work. I've seen it before. Smart guy, talented partner. He gets the glory while she gets erased from the story. Garrett leaned forward. Also because I'm gay, happily married, and I have zero ulterior motives beyond helping someone who got screwed over by the tech bro system. Harper felt tears burning her eyes. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. Consider it an investment, because here's what I really want to talk to you about. He pulled out a business card. When you're ready, when those babies are home and healthy, call me. I want to hear your ideas. Your ideas, not Dominic's, because that pitch deck, that was genius. And genius doesn't disappear just because some guy puts his name on it. He stood up. Think about it. Meanwhile, my foundation will handle the NICU bills. You focus on being a mom. He left before Harper could respond. She sat there holding his business card, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. It wouldn't last. 6 months after bringing the triplets home, Harper was operating on 3 hours of sleep a night and surviving on coffee and pure stubbornness. Rachel's apartment had become an infant triage center. 3 pack-and-plays crammed into the spare bedroom, bottles drying on every surface, the smell of diaper pail permanently embedded in the walls. But Harper was building something. Every night after the babies finally slept, usually around 11, she opened her laptop. Garrett's offer had been genuine. His foundation paid the NICU bills. In return, he wanted to hear her ideas. So Harper created Prism Analytics. Everything she'd learned building Pulse, she poured into Prism. But better, cleaner interface, more intuitive dashboard. Lower price point for small businesses that couldn't afford enterprise solutions. She coded until 2 in the morning. Woke at 5 when the babies cried for bottles. Repeated it the next night and the next. Rachel helped with feedings and diaper changes, never complaining, though Harper saw the exhaustion in her friend's eyes too. "You're insane," Rachel said one night, finding Harper hunched over her laptop at midnight, Brooks asleep against her chest in a carrier. "Probably," Harper agreed. "But I'm also right. Small businesses need affordable analytics. There's a market here." She launched Prism on a Friday in March. Her first client was a bakery in Brooklyn who paid $300 a month. Her second was a boutique fitness studio. Her third was a dog walking service. Not glamorous, but it was working. By month 8, she had 20 clients. Revenue hit $50,000 monthly. By month 10, 200,000. She hired a part-time developer, then another. A local business journal reached out for an interview. "Single mom disrupts analytics industry." The headline would read, Harper agreed to the profile. It ran on a Tuesday. Dominic saw it on Wednesday. The lawsuit arrived on Friday. Harper stared at the legal documents, her hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped them. Rachel read over her shoulder, swearing under her breath. Trade secret misappropriation, breach of confidentiality, tortious interference. Rachel's voice was tight with anger. "He's claiming you stole proprietary algorithms and client lists during your marriage." "That's insane," Harper said. "I built Prism from scratch. Different code, different platform, different everything." "Doesn't matter. He's got lawyers. Good ones. See this?" Rachel pointed to a name. "Winston and Keller, top-tier corporate defense. This will cost at least $100,000 to fight." Harper felt the room tilt. She had maybe $30,000 in business savings. The company was finally breaking even, finally making enough to pay rent on a real apartment, finally giving her a chance to breathe. "There's more," Rachel said grimly. "He's filed for a preliminary injunction. Emergency hearing is Monday. If the judge grants it, you'll have to cease all operations immediately. No revenue, no clients, nothing until the trial. Which could take months," Harper finished. "Or a year." That weekend felt like drowning. Harper tried to work but couldn't focus. The baby seemed to sense her stress, crying more than usual, refusing naps. Sunday night, Sloan spiked a fever. Harper spent 4 hours in the emergency room, only to be told it was a minor virus. The bill would be $800. Monday morning. Harper stood in front of Judge Ellen Morrison, a different judge than her divorce proceedings, with a public defender who'd had 15 minutes to review her case. Dominic's lawyer was a man in a $5,000 suit who spoke with the confidence of someone who'd never lost. "Your Honor, my client built Pulse Analytics through years of innovation and proprietary development. Miss Westfield had access to all systems during their marriage. The similarities between Pulse and Prism are not coincidental." Harper's public defender tried to argue. Miss Westfield built her company independently, using publicly available frameworks, and the burden of proof shows otherwise. Dominic's lawyer interrupted. "We have expert analysis comparing the code. Significant overlap." Harper wanted to scream. The overlap was because both systems use standard industry frameworks. It was like saying two authors committed plagiarism because they both use the English language. Judge Morrison reviewed the documents, looked at Harper, looked at Dominic, who sat in his expensive suit, face carefully neutral. "I'm granting a temporary injunction pending full trial," the judge said. "Miss Westfield, you are ordered to cease all operations of Prism Analytics immediately. No client work, no revenue generation, until we can fully examine these claims." Harper felt something inside her collapse. Outside the courtroom, she tried to call Garrett. Voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. An email came through that afternoon. "Harper, I'm sorry, but my legal team advises I cannot be involved in ongoing litigation between you and a portfolio company. The foundation's support was for medical care, but I cannot invest in or assist with Prism while this suit is active. I hope you understand." She understood perfectly. She was alone. That night, she sent emails to all 20 clients, explaining the situation. By morning, 18 had canceled. The remaining 2 said they'd wait, but probably wouldn't. Rachel found her sitting on the floor of the spare bedroom, surrounded by sleeping babies, laptop shut, bottle of wine half empty. "Maybe you should settle," Rachel said quietly. "Dominic will offer something. Enough to start over somewhere else. And let him win again. Harper's voice was hollow. No, let yourself survive. Harper looked at her 3 children, sleeping peacefully, unaware their mother's world was burning down. Sloane's tiny fist curled around the blanket. Piper's mouth made sucking motions in sleep. Brooks snored softly, that funny little noise he made that usually made her laugh. You know that moment when rock bottom opens up. Harper thought, this is it. This is the basement underneath the basement. But she was wrong. It could still get worse. The eviction notice came on a Tuesday, exactly 2 weeks after the injunction. Harper stood in the hallway of Rachel's building, reading the paper with numb detachment. 30-day notice to vacate premises. The landlord, a nervous man named Howard Greenspan, hovered nearby. I'm sorry, Miss Torres, I got a call. Anonymous. Said there were concerns about child welfare, unsafe conditions, ongoing legal troubles. I can't risk problems with the building. Rachel's face went red. Howard, that's insane. There are no unsafe conditions. Someone's harassing us. I'm sure, but with the legal issues mentioned, my insurance company says I need to act. I'm sorry. 30 days. He left quickly. Rachel and Harper stared at each other. Dominic, Harper said flatly. Has to be. That same afternoon, an official-looking letter arrived from something called Child Protective Services Evaluation Unit. Harper's hands shook opening it. Pursuant to concerns raised regarding housing instability and parental capability, a home evaluation has been scheduled for March 22nd at 10 a.m. Failure to comply may result in emergency custody review. Harper read it 3 times. He's trying to take my children. Rachel grabbed her phone. I'm calling Beth. You're a divorce lawyer. She'll know what to do. Beth Kowalski met them at a coffee shop that evening. She read the documents with her jaw tight. This is a pattern, legal harassment designed to make you give up. The CPS evaluation is real, but I'm guessing the complaint came from an interested party. Can they take my kids? Harper asked. Not unless there's genuine cause, but you need to be prepared. They'll inspect your living situation, ask about income, stability, support systems. Given that you're facing eviction and have no current income, she trailed off. I'm screwed, Harper finished. Not necessarily, but it's bad. Beth leaned forward. I found something, though. The prenup you signed, there's a problem. Dominic didn't disclose the pending Series B funding. That's material non-disclosure. The contract is potentially unenforceable. Harper felt a spark of hope. Meaning we can reopen the divorce settlement, fight for an equitable share of the business you helped build. It'll take time. But Beth's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowned, answered. Yes, you're sure. She hung up, her expression grim. What? Harper asked. Dominic just filed for personal bankruptcy. Chapter 7. The words didn't make sense at first. He can't be bankrupt. Pulse is worth $30 million. Was worth $30 million. Apparently there's been financial trouble. The company's being sold to a hedge fund for pennies, and his personal assets are... Beth consulted her phone. Protected offshore. Even if we win the prenup challenge, there's nothing to collect. Harper laughed. Actual laughter, edged with hysteria. He planned this. He knew I'd challenge the prenup eventually, so he made sure there'd be nothing to take. Rachel swore creatively. Beth just nodded. It's sophisticated financial maneuvering, not illegal. Unfortunately, just cruel. That night, Harper sat alone in Rachel's apartment while her friend worked late. The babies were asleep. She should have been sleeping too, but instead she stared at her laptop. Prism Analytics, dead in the water, clients gone, revenue zero, bank account $4,200, savings zero, prospects none, housing 30 days until homeless, legal threats multiple. Her phone buzzed. Instagram notification. She almost didn't look, but muscle memory made her tap it. Sienna had posted a video. She stood in what looked like a nursery, all whites and creams and expensive furniture. The caption read, "Sending love to those struggling with co-parenting. Sometimes loving a child means knowing when to let others help. Praying for peace." The comments made Harper's stomach turn. Is this about his ex? Poor thing, she's obviously unstable. At least those babies have you now. Harper closed Instagram, threw her phone across the room. It hit the wall but didn't break. She wanted to scream, to break things, to drive to Dominic's house and tell him exactly what she thought. But what good would it do? He'd won. Completely. Thoroughly. He'd taken her company, her reputation, her financial security. And now he was coming for her children. Harper walked to the bedroom where her three babies slept in pack-and-plays pushed together. Sloane's arm had flopped over the side. Piper was drooling on her blanket. Brooks clutched his little stuffed elephant. They were 1 year old now, walking, babbling, starting to develop personalities. Sloane was fearless. Piper was cautious. Brooks was stubborn as hell. They looked like her. They had Dominic's coloring. But Harper's expressions, her determination in Sloane's set jaw, her caution in Piper's careful movements, her stubbornness in Brooks refusing to sleep unless that elephant was in his grip. "I'm sorry," she whispered to them. "I tried. I really tried." But maybe Rachel was right. Maybe survival meant giving up, settling, disappearing. Maybe Dominic had won because people like him always won. They had money and lawyers and systems that protected them. What did Harper have? 3 babies, $4,000, and rapidly disappearing options. She went back to the living room, sat down at her laptop, started composing an email to Dominic's lawyer, then stopped. Her cursor hovered over an old external hard drive plugged into her laptop. From the marriage. She'd grabbed it when moving out, just backed up old files, photos, documents. Harper clicked on it, started browsing folders, tax documents, old photos, email backups. Then she saw a folder labeled Pulse Development. She opened it. Inside were files from the first year of Pulse Analytics, code repositories, pitch decks, client contracts, all time-stamped from before Dominic copyrighted anything. And there, in black and white, was proof. Email threads between Harper and their first developer, code commits under her username, the original pitch deck, version 1.0, created by Harper Westfield. Every document Dominic claimed as his own work originated from her computer, with her name, with timestamps that preceded his copyright claims by months. Harper stared at the screen. Her hands started shaking, but not with despair this time. With rage. She couldn't prove she didn't steal from Pulse, but she could prove Dominic stole from her first. Harper opened a new document and started typing. Not an email to his lawyer, something else entirely. By 3 a.m., she'd written 5,000 words. The truth, all of it, with timestamps, screenshots, and documentation. She titled it, "How My Ex-Husband Stole My Company and Called Me Crazy." At 3:15, she posted it to Medium. At 3:16, she called the number on Madison Cooper's business card, the one Beth had mentioned once. Madison ran a small IP law firm and did pro bono work. Voicemail. Harper left a message. "This is Harper Westfield. I have documentation proving copyright theft. Call me, please." Then she crawled into bed next to Sloane's pack and play and fell asleep for the first time in weeks. Not peacefully, but with purpose. Harper's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. She ignored it. By 7, Rachel was shaking her awake. "Harper, your article. It's everywhere." Harper grabbed her phone, still foggy with sleep. Her Medium post had gone viral. 2.4 million views, 12,000 comments, shares across Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. TechCrunch had already written a response piece. Pulse Analytics founder accused of stealing wife's work. She scrolled through her notifications, heart pounding, tech journalists, bloggers, other founders reaching out with similar stories. One message stopped her cold. From Madison Cooper, the IP attorney. "Read your post, reviewed your docs. Call me immediately. We can win this." Harper called. Madison picked up on the first ring. "You've got him," Madison said without preamble. "Those timestamps are damning. Original code commits, email threads, everything. Dominic copyrighted your work after you created it. That's not trade secret theft on your part. It's fraud on his. Can you prove it in court?" "With what you've shown me, absolutely. I'm taking your case pro bono." "Well, mostly. You'll pay me back a percentage when Prism is profitable again. Deal. Harper felt tears burning her eyes. Deal. Good. We're filing a countersuit this afternoon. Copyright infringement, fraud, and theft of intellectual property. And we're going public with it because the court of public opinion matters in cases like this. By noon, the tech world was on fire. Twitter threads dissected Harper's claims. Other women came forward with stories of male co-founders taking credit. The hashtag #WhoBuiltPulse was trending. Dominic posted a statement through his lawyers. I'm disappointed my ex-wife is attempting to rewrite history for financial gain. The facts will speak for themselves in court. The response was immediate and brutal. Bro, we've seen the timestamps. Those emails are literally dated before you filed copyright. Maybe she's rewriting history because you edited her out of the first draft. Sienna's Instagram, which had been a carefully curated highlight reel of her marriage, went dark. No posts, no stories. The comments on her existing posts turned nasty. Did you know you married a fraud? How's it feel to be an accessory to theft? By that evening, Rachel was reading comments aloud while Harper fed the triplets. Listen to this one, Dominic Westfield out here, like Edison, when he's really just the dude who screwed over Tesla. Harper laughed despite herself. That's giving him too much credit. Edison at least invented something. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Harper Westfield. A man's voice. Professional. Yes. This is Marcus Holland from the Wall Street Journal. I'd like to interview you about your Medium post and the allegations against Pulse Analytics. Would you be willing to talk? Harper glanced at Rachel, who was nodding frantically. Yes, I'll talk. The interview ran 2 days later. Front page of the business section. The woman who built Pulse Analytics speaks out. More articles followed. Bloomberg, Forbes, Fast Company. Everyone wanted the story of the wife who got erased and fought back with receipts. Dominic's investors started an internal investigation. His Series B lead, a prominent firm, issued a statement. We take allegations of intellectual property theft seriously and are reviewing the circumstances around our investment in Pulse Analytics. The preliminary hearing for Dominic's lawsuit against Harper was postponed. His lawyers needed time to respond to her countersuit. But the real explosion came from an unexpected source. Trevor Marsh, Dominic's business partner and co-founder, reached out directly. They met at a coffee shop in Midtown. Trevor looking uncomfortable in his startup hoodie and expensive sneakers. I'm being subpoenaed for your case, he said without preamble. And I want you to know, I'm telling the truth. Harper studied him, which is that you built most of the original platform. Dominic was the front man, the fundraiser, but the technical work, the client relationships, the actual business, that was you? He looked ashamed. I knew it then. I should have said something, but he was my ticket to success and you were just his wife. Just his wife, Harper repeated flatly. I know how that sounds. I'm sorry. For what it's worth. I'm getting out, selling my shares, starting over. This whole thing made me realize I don't want to be the kind of person who succeeds by stepping on others. He left an envelope on the table. Internal emails, more documentation. Dominic told me to delete these, but I kept backups. Use them. After he left, Harper opened the envelope. Dozens of pages. Email threads between Dominic and Trevor discussing how to position Harper's role as support staff in investor meetings. Notes about minimizing her visibility in press coverage. Proof of intentional erasure. Madison Cooper reviewed the documents that night with barely contained excitement. This is better than timestamps. This is conspiracy. He deliberately wrote you out of the company history. That strengthens fraud claims and might give us grounds for punitive damages. The preliminary hearing finally happened 3 weeks later. Dominic's lawsuit to shut down Prism Analytics, Harper's countersuit for copyright infringement and fraud. Judge Patricia Holland, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, reviewed both cases with obvious skepticism. Dominic's lawyer argued his case, but his confidence had cracked. Your Honor, while the timestamps appear to favor Miss Westfield, context matters. She had access to all systems as Mr. Westfield's spouse. The intellectual property rightfully belonged to the person who created it. Judge Holland interrupted, which according to code commits and email evidence was Miss Westfield. Counsel, I've reviewed your client's copyright filings. They post-date Miss Westfield's original work by 4 months. You're arguing she stole her own creation. The marriage was a partnership. Marriage doesn't transfer intellectual property rights. Creation does. Next, Madison Cooper stood. Your Honor, we're requesting immediate dismissal of the trade secret claims against Miss Westfield and removal of the operations injunction. The evidence clearly shows she built Prism Analytics using her own prior work, not stolen material. Judge Holland didn't hesitate. Granted, the injunction is lifted immediately. Miss Westfield may resume operations. Furthermore, I'm finding sufficient evidence to proceed with Miss Westfield's countersuit. Trial date set for September. She turned to Dominic, who sat very still in his expensive suit. Mr. Westfield, I suggest you and your counsel prepare a very good defense. This court does not look kindly on copyright fraud. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Harper stood on the steps, Madison beside her, and made a statement. For years, I was told my contributions didn't matter, that I was just support staff, just the wife. Today, a judge said what I've always known: I built that company. My work, my code, my ideas. No one gets to erase me from my own story. The clip played on every news network that night, and in a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Dominic Westfield poured himself a drink with shaking hands and wondered how everything had fallen apart so fast. 6 months after the injunction lifted, Prism Analytics had not just recovered, it had exploded. Harper operated from a small office in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, but it was hers. 12 employees now, mostly women, many of them mothers who needed flexible schedules. Revenue hit $2.3 million annually. But more than the numbers, something else had changed. Harper had found her voice. She spoke at tech conferences about founder equity, wrote articles about protecting intellectual property and partnerships, started a podcast called Built Different, featuring women who'd been erased from their own success stories. The business community responded. Clients who'd left during the lawsuit came back, bringing friends. Garrett Sullivan reinvested, this time with a formal term sheet and equity stake. Fortune 500 companies started calling. Meanwhile, Dominic's world crumbled. The internal investigation at Pulse Analytics found evidence of financial mismanagement beyond the copyright issues. Investor money used for personal expenses, falsified metrics. The hedge fund that had agreed to buy the company backed out. The board forced Dominic to resign as CEO. Trevor Marsh took over, immediately rebranded, and tried to salvage what remained. But the damage was done. Pulse's valuation dropped from $30 million to $4 million almost overnight. The trial for Harper's copyright infringement claim was set for September. But 2 weeks before the court date, Dominic's lawyers reached out with a settlement offer. Harper met with Madison Cooper in the Prism Analytics office. Her 3 children played in the corner, watched by Rachel, who'd become the company's unofficial COO and official best aunt. They're offering $2 million, Madison said. Admission of no wrongdoing, but payment for your contributed intellectual property during the marriage. $2 million for a company I built that was worth 30 quantum. He doesn't have 30 anymore. Pulse sold for 4. After debts and investor payouts, Dominic's walking away with maybe $800,000. This offer is him liquidating assets to avoid a trial he knows he'll lose. Harper watched Sloan stack blocks while Piper tried to steal them, and Brooks chewed on a toy truck. They were 2 years old now, talking, running, developing into full humans with opinions and demands. What would you recommend? Harper asked. Take it. $2 million gives you runway to grow Prism without outside investors controlling you. Plus the trial would be another 6 months of stress and legal fees. This ends it. Does he have to admit he stole my work? The settlement includes a public statement acknowledging your significant contributions to Pulse Analytics' initial development. Not perfect, but something. I'll take it on one condition, Harper said. $1 million goes into a trust for programs that help women fight back against this exact situation. Legal aid, business funding, childcare support. Everything I wish I'd had. Madison smiled. I'll draft it. The settlement went through. The public statement appeared on Dominic's LinkedIn. I acknowledge that Harper Westfield's contributions to Pulse Analytics' initial development were more significant than previously stated. I wish her success in her future endeavors. It was corporate speak, carefully lawyered, but the comments section translated for anyone who couldn't read between the lines. That's a fancy way of saying she built it and you took credit. This guy really said previously stated like he didn't spend years calling her a thief. My man just paid $2 million to say my bad. Sienna filed for divorce 3 weeks after the settlement. 8 months married. Her Instagram returned to life with a cryptic post. Sometimes your biggest mistake leads to your greatest lesson. Harper didn't comment, didn't engage. She had better things to do, like preparing for her TechCrunch Disrupt speech. She stood backstage, listening to the host introduce her. Our next speaker built a company twice. Once for someone else, then again for herself. Please welcome Harper Westfield, founder and CEO of Prism Analytics. Harper walked onto the stage. The lights were bright. The audience was huge. For a moment, she felt that old fear, the one that said she didn't belong here. Then she saw Rachel in the front row, giving her a thumbs up. Saw other women in the audience leaning forward, waiting to hear her story. Harper stepped up to the microphone. 3 years ago, I signed away my rights to a company I built because I was tired, pregnant, and told I was being unreasonable. 2 years ago, I was sued for stealing my own work. Last year, I proved that the only thing I stole was my life back. She told them everything: the erasure, the betrayal, the lawsuit, the moment she found the evidence, the choice to fight instead of disappear. Today, Prism Analytics is valued at $15 million. She continued, we've created 30 jobs. We've helped 200 small businesses compete with enterprise-level analytics. But here's what I'm most proud of. She pulled up a slide. Photos of her children at the office, at home, at the park. My kids know their mother doesn't quit. They know she fights. And they know that when someone tries to take your story, you write a better one. The audience applauded. Some people stood, more followed. To every woman who's been told she's too emotional for business, who's been erased from her own success story, who's been called crazy for demanding what she built, you're not crazy. You're right, and you're not alone. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Harper's phone exploded with messages, investor interest, speaking invitations, media requests. But the message that mattered most came from Rachel. The triplets say mommy was on TV, and they're very proud. Also, Brooks threw his truck at the screen, but I think that's unrelated. Harper laughed, standing in the wings of the stage, and realized something. She'd won. Not because she'd destroyed Dominic, not because she'd gotten revenge. She'd won because she'd told the truth, and the truth had set her free. 2 years after the TechCrunch speech, Harper's life had transformed into something she barely recognized. Prism Analytics had been acquired by Salesforce for $47 million. Her share, as majority owner, $31 million. She'd used $5 million to start the Prism Fund, providing legal aid and startup capital for women screwed over in divorces or business partnerships. The rest went into investments and a trust for the triplets. Harper bought a brownstone in Park Slope, Brooklyn, not Manhattan penthouse flashy, but solid and real. The triplets, now 5 years old, had their own rooms. Rachel lived on the top floor, official business partner and forever family. On a Wednesday morning in October, Harper walked into a coffee shop in Soho, the kind of place that served $8 lattes and had exposed brick walls. She'd been meeting with an architect about the Prism Fund's new office space. The triplets were with Rachel at a museum. Harper had exactly 45 minutes of alone time before picking them up. She ordered her overpriced coffee and found a table by the window. The door chimed. Harper glanced up out of habit. Dominic Westfield walked in. He looked older, thinner. The expensive suits had been replaced by business casual. He was on his phone, talking in the hushed tones of someone trying to sound more important than they felt. Yeah, but I'm consulting now, advising early-stage startups. Yeah, between opportunities. But you know how it is in this market. Harper watched him order. He still took his coffee, black with 1 sugar. Some things didn't change. He turned, scanning for an empty table, and froze. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither moved. Dominic ended his call, walked over slowly. Harper. Dominic. Can I? He gestured to the empty chair. Harper considered saying no, but curiosity won. Sure. He sat down carefully, like approaching a wild animal. You look good, successful. I am successful because I earned it this time. He winced. Fair. He stirred his coffee unnecessarily. I saw the news about the Salesforce acquisition, 47 million. That's incredible. It would have been more if I hadn't spent years fighting to prove I'd earned the right to build it. Another wince. I deserve that too. He looked up. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. For all of it. The divorce, the lawsuit, trying to erase you. I was an asshole. Harper studied him, looking for signs of manipulation. The old Dominic who could charm his way out of anything. But she saw only exhaustion. Why tell me now? Because I spent the last 2 years in therapy trying to figure out why I sabotaged the best thing I ever had. Turns out I'm insecure, narcissistic, and terrified of anyone seeing my actual limitations. He laughed bitterly. Cost me $300,000 in therapy bills to figure out what you probably knew in year 2 of our marriage. Year 1, Harper corrected. But I loved you, so I ignored it. I loved you too. I just loved myself more. He pushed his coffee away. Sienna left me, obviously, took half of what I had left, which wasn't much. I'm living in Queens now, doing contract work, teaching myself how to actually code instead of just taking credit for other people's code. Harper felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, just sadness. I'm sorry that's where you ended up. I'm not. I needed to hit bottom. Only way I could finally see what I'd done. He met her eyes. Those babies I sued you over, I've never met them. And that's the thing I'm most ashamed of. They're not babies anymore. They're kids. Loud, chaotic, amazing kids. What are their names? Harper hesitated, then decided he'd earned this much. Sloan, Piper, and Brooks. Strong names, he smiled sadly. They get that from you. The strength. They get it from surviving without you. Also fair. He stood up. I should go. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I want anything from you. I know that ship sailed and sank and decomposed at the bottom of the ocean, but because you deserve to hear it. Harper nodded. Thank you. He started to leave, then turned back. The Prism Fund, what you're doing for other women, that's important work. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm glad I can. He left. Harper sat alone with her coffee, watching him walk down the street through the window. A man who'd once controlled her whole world, now just another stranger with regrets. Her phone buzzed. Rachel, museum is a hit. Sloan found a dinosaur exhibit and won't leave. Also, Brooks is convinced he can speak to fish now. Send help or snacks. Harper smiled, paid for her coffee, and headed out. She had better things to do than dwell on the past. The Prism Fund's new office space opened on a cool morning in November. Glass doors, open floor plan, and a conference room named the Truth Room where women could meet with lawyers, accountants, and advisors. Harper stood in the center of it all, watching the staff set up desks and hang artwork. Rachel appeared with coffee and a knowing smile. You did it, Rachel said. From my spare bedroom to this. We did it, Harper corrected. I would have drowned without you. Please, you're the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. coding. I just kept the kids alive. They stood together in comfortable silence. Through the window, Brooklyn spread out beneath them, alive and busy and full of possibility. Harper's phone rang. Unknown number. She considered ignoring it, then answered. Hello, it's Miss Westfield. This is Jennifer Martinez. I'm an attorney in Chicago. I have a client. She built a tech company with her husband, and now he's filed for divorce and claiming sole ownership. Someone told me to call the Prism Fund. Harper grabbed a pen. Tell me everything. An hour later, after taking detailed notes and promising Jennifer they'd help, Harper sat in the truth room with Madison Cooper, now the fund's lead attorney. Cases like this are why we exist, Madison said, reviewing the notes. Woman builds company, man takes credit, system protects him until someone fights back. How many cases are we handling now, Harper asked. 43 active, another 100 in queue. The need is massive. Then we scale up, more lawyers, more funding, whatever it takes. That evening, Harper picked up the triplets from school. Sloan ran out first, backpack bouncing, shouting about the solar system project she'd aced. Piper followed more carefully, holding a painting she'd made. Brooks trailed last, arguing with his teacher about whether dinosaurs could have survived if they'd learned to swim. Mommy, Sloane crashed into her legs. Guess what? I got 100%. That's my girl. What about you? Pipes. Piper held up her painting. A family. 4 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. It's us. And Aunt Rachel. It's perfect. Brooks finally reached them. Miss Anderson says dinosaurs couldn't breathe underwater, but I said maybe they could if they tried hard enough. Harper crouched down to his level. Buddy, sometimes things aren't possible, even if we try hard. But you know what is possible? Learning about things and asking good questions. That's called being a scientist. Can I be a dinosaur scientist? You can be anything you want. They walked home through Park Slope, the autumn air crisp and perfect. The brownstone glowed warmly in the fading light. Rachel was cooking dinner, the smell of garlic and tomatoes drifting from the open window. After dinner and baths and stories, Harper tucked each child into their own bed. Sloane immediately started reading by flashlight under her covers. Piper arranged her stuffed animals in precise order. Brooks clutched his elephant and asked 17 questions about space. Mommy, Sloane said as Harper turned off her light, why don't we have a daddy? The question Harper had been waiting for. She sat back down on the bed. You do have a daddy. He just doesn't live with us. Why? Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes mean families look different than other families. But different isn't bad. It's just different. Do you think he's sorry? Sloane asked. At 5 years old, she was already too perceptive. I think he might be, but sorry doesn't always fix things. Sometimes you just have to move forward and be better. Are we better? Harper looked at her daughter, fierce and bright and full of questions. We're pretty great, actually. Later, after all 3 kids were finally asleep, Harper sat in her home office, the room where she'd rebuilt everything. On her desk sat the Comeback Founder Award from TechCrunch, a photo of the triplets, and a framed screenshot from that old external hard drive. Her original pitch deck for Pulse Analytics, time-stamped and undeniable. Rachel knocked softly. Glass of wine, always. They sat on the back deck, wrapped in blankets against the November chill, watching Brooklyn's lights twinkle in the darkness. Do you ever think about how different things would be if you just signed that NDA? Rachel asked. If you'd taken the original settlement and disappeared? Harper considered it. Sometimes. But then I think about all the women calling the Prism Fund. All the stories were changing. The kids were keeping with their mothers. If I disappeared, none of that happens. So you're glad it all fell apart. I'm glad I didn't break when it did. Harper sipped her wine. You know what I learned? Rock bottom doesn't destroy you. It just shows you what you're made of. And I'm made of something tougher than I thought. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. The subject line, success story, client update. Harper opened it. A photo of a woman in her 30s, standing in front of a storefront with a grand opening sign. The email read, Harper, remember me. You helped me fight for my bakery when my ex tried to claim it in the divorce. We won. I kept my business. I'm opening my 2nd location next month. Thank you for teaching me not to give up. Harper showed Rachel. They clinked glasses. To not giving up, Rachel said. To writing better endings, Harper added. Inside, one of the kids cried out from a nightmare. Harper set down her wine and went to comfort them. This was her life now. Single mother, successful founder, accidental activist. Not the story she'd planned, but somehow better. Because the truth doesn't need to be dressed up or posted on Instagram, Harper thought, stroking Brooks' hair as he settled back to sleep. It just needs to be told. And I'm just getting started. Epilogue. 5 years later, Harper stood in the wings of the World Economic Forum stage in Davos. The introduction played, Please welcome Harper Westfield, founder of the Prism Fund and advocate for economic equity and divorce. She walked out to applause. The audience included world leaders, billionaires, changemakers, people who could actually shift policy. I'm going to tell you a story, Harper began, about a woman who signed away her future because she was tired and scared and had no other options. About a system that protected the person who stole from her and punished her for fighting back. About 3 babies who almost lost their mother to poverty and despair. That woman was me. Those babies are my kids. And that system, we're here to change it. She presented data, case studies, success stories, legislative proposals, everything the Prism Fund had learned from 5 years of fighting. The audience listened intently. We've helped 3,000 women keep their businesses, their children, and their dignity. Harper said, but there are 300,000 more who need help. So here's what I'm asking: fund this work. Support these women, change these laws, because the next great founder, the next revolutionary idea, might be trapped in a divorce settlement right now, waiting for someone to believe her story. Standing ovation. Again. But this time it came with commitments, funding pledges, partnership proposals, real change. Backstage, Harper checked her phone. A video from Rachel showed the triplets, now 10 years old, at their school science fair. Sloan had built a robot. Piper had grown crystal formations. Brooks had created a dinosaur evolution timeline that included his theory about amphibious T-Rexes. The caption, "Your kids are nerds and I love them. Come home soon." Harper smiled, replied with a heart emoji, then headed to the reception where she'd spend the evening convincing rich people to invest in poor women's futures. It was hard work, important work, world-changing work. But first, she was a mother. And that was the story that mattered most, because that divorce had broken her, but the breaking had revealed something stronger underneath. Not just survival, not just revenge, but purpose in purpose. Harper had learned was the best comeback of all, the end. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing you ever did. This is that story.